Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. In this video I wanted to show you two of the bridges that I showed in a recent video that were work in progress. I've completed two of them and just wanted to give you a chance to take a look at them before I ship them out. So here you can see the largest of the fieldstone bridges. The customer had requested that I that I finish the bridge with a realistic appearance, try to go for the maximum realism, and mentioned, perhaps including some mosses and the like. And so what I've done is I really tried to go in and put in some real shading on the stones, airbrushing in some weathered spots. What I've noticed on bridges, stone bridges, they often have a very mottled appearance, different stones, a lot of weathering effects on them. So I've gone in around the columns and, shaded them in, and a lot of that work was covered up by subsequent, the subsequent moss application, but, still try to capture some of that essence of, an older stonework that's been aged and eroded through weathering processes. And then what I've done is gone in and added in some moss. This is a fine turf that I've sprinkled in and sealed onto the bridge, and really tried to give it, sort of an in the crack feel, but overgrowing it, starting to add some body of moss as the years have gone on. Originally I wasn't going to put any on the interior of the rails, and then I decided that I really needed to. I thought, because if it's growing on this side, why wouldn't it be growing on this side? And then I realized, well, if I'm going to put it on both sides of the rails, why don't I have any in the deck? So then I went back in and I brushed some in between the cracks of a variety of spots on the deck, but I wanted to keep the surface clean. As you figure, footsteps are going to be eroding the deck over time, eroding the moss off, so it's not going to really be able to get a foothold. But in the little cracks and crevices, and hopefully this is going to show up, it's really been trying to fill those areas in. So that was my goal, and overall, I really liked the way this bridge came out. I was very pleased with it, and I think it's probably the best bridge I've done to date. And just before I go with this bridge, I thought I should try to give you a really nice close-up look at some of those details, so you can get a little better sense of the texture that the moss has. And also try to point out, one of the things I did is I went in and I picked out individual stones. There's one here, there's one up here, there's actually a couple more. There's one over here, there's one right here, and this one in the back here, there we go, let's see if I can keep that in frame. This one stands out a little bit more. I actually picked out about a dozen or so stones in about 3 or 4 different colors on each of the facings. And one of the things that I had felt like perhaps in the previous test piece it was a little bit too bright. So what I decided to do instead was to pick them out, but then do all of the subsequent highlight colors the same. And it really took the pop out of those stones, which I was kind of happy about, actually, as I felt like maybe it was a little bit too much before. And so now my goal with that is to just try to have small little accent details that are really sort of the treasures that you come up when you take a look at the bridge up close. You realize, oh my God, there's a couple stones painted individually, like, this isn't all uniform. And I think at a distance it lends it a little bit more of a more interesting look for one of those, like, I don't know why, but it looks better kind of a thing. And again, it produces an uneven coloring on the walls that I think helps to mimic a lot of the pictures that I've seen of natural fieldstone walls. So I just wanted to give you a little close-up of some of that work so you could maybe get a sense of what's been done. The second bridge that I did, I finished the smallest of the bridges, as sort of a bit of a contrast. Now this bridge has a much more finished feel, being, the sort of sculpted stonework rather than the field stone. So I was a little reluctant to go, sort of hog wild on it, but But as I started working on it, I realized that the more I added to it, the more it felt a little believable. A lot of times what I've noticed is that stones will pick up irregular areas where the stones, I don't know whether it's oxidation or such, but you'll get these patches of dark areas. So I went in with the airbrush and I really tried to accentuate that feel that there's, an uneven wear, an uneven aging process happening. Different parts of the rocks are taking that on a bit more. And then I really didn't think I was going to go with any of the moss, but I decided that perhaps a little bit might work. And so what I've done is much more lightly added some of the mossing in with two colors. Try to add a little more, color pop with a lot less material. Of course, I went in with some airbrushes, and with my airbrush, I mean, and did some darkening and some, tried to pick out the rails and run, some darkening along those. But some of that, of course, got covered up by the moss. But you never know where the subsequent work is going to take you, so you need to do all of the base work and then, build from there. Then what I found is that as I was putting on the moss, my fingers, had moss residue on them. Moss, it's fine foliage from Woodland Scenics, but some of the areas where it was wet, I realized some of the green was coming off, and what I realized is it gave it a really nice, like pre-moss effect, or algae, or some other kind of growth on there, and it just helped to tie in the green. Oh, cat. Helped to tie in the green and with the sort of stark bright of the stonework, because this is kind of a brighter finish on this bridge than the other fieldstone bridge, so I wanted to somehow give it a little bit more of an organic feel, if that makes any sense. And so that was what I ended up settling on, and again, overall, I felt like it came out really well, and felt like I'm getting a little bit more of a handle on the airbrush as well, and how it can, be brought to bear on a project like this. So that gives you a little chance to see, chance to see two of the bridges. The other two will be finished upcoming pretty soon, and of course when they're done I'll give you a chance to take a look at those as well. And if you want to see photos of these, they'll be on the website shortly after this video goes live. So keep a look in the description down below, and that's where I'll put the link for the photographs on the TerranScapes site. And if you want to see any of my previous work, you can always go to TerranScapes.com to see that. And keep your eye on the channel, as I'm sure I'll have another video coming up for you pretty soon. And once again, I just wanted to thank you for joining me yet again for another TerranScapes video.